And that was a major weird thing. I was still on mute. So, hi again. I'm Brian. I'm your host for today, and welcome to the Snyk user office hours. And yes, I probably will see in the comments right now that are here on my right hand side, like you're on mute. I know. Sorry. And anyway, we're here. Thanks for being here. And today we're going to cover the Snyk CLI again. But in this case, we're specifically will dive into Snyk Code, which is pretty much our SaaS solution, but then bound into the Snyk CLI, so you can use it on your local machine. Remember that the office hours is an open format. We looked into a few things, but we actually did not script anything. We're just trying it out as you would do, like having that proper user experience. Be aware that if you have any questions around Snyk, one of the products or a use case, or feel free to just dump them in the chat. We're streaming at this point to both YouTube and Twitch. Just put your questions in over there, and I will see them in my screen and pop that up if it's necessary. If we cannot answer them, then of course we will refer back to you later on. Anyway, I am here today. Not alone. Luckily, not alone, because if you just hear me talk for an hour, that would be, I think, pretty boring. So let's bring up a few of my coworkers and my dear colleagues. First of all, you probably have seen him before, Mr. Kyle. How are you?
Hello, Brian. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be on here and talk about some awesome Snyk Code features today.
Great to have you on board, man. This will be awesome. But we have somebody else as well. And this person recently joined our Snyk DevRel team, was already a Snyk ambassador, and somebody who was well known specifically in some communities within the UK, like hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, the Open UK community, and a lot of other things. So if you're based in the UK or London based, anyway, I know that Sonia, who I'm introducing right now, is based in London, currently in the London office, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm so happy that you're here, Sonia. Welcome.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, really happy to be here and have joined Snyk.
Absolutely. So let's figure a few things out. Have you already, Sonia, have you already tried the CLI?
I did, yeah. I did install it on my machine and have a go with it. I really love the tool. Yeah, having great visibility and great insights from the CLI. So, but I want to learn more actually today with you folks. So.
That's what we're here for. And again, for all of you folks that are out there, if you have any questions during whatever we're going to demo, or maybe some other things along the way that are Snyk related, this is the time to ask them, so we can put that on screen, maybe answer them right away, or just try it out, and maybe we'll figure it out together. Kyle, you worked with the CLI many times before. So what do you think is the most powerful thing in the whole CLI thing?
Yeah, I think the most powerful thing about the CLI, just from a developer's point of view, or even just a security practitioner's point of view, is all the background information that you can get about the specific vulnerability that you're attempting to remediate, right, or the certain vulnerability that you're detecting. So I think that's really powerful, and there's really nothing stopping you from just git cloning all of your repos, like every single repo programmatically, and scanning them, in the CLI, if that's what suits your workflow better than, perhaps, analyzing results in the IDE, analyzing results in the UI, right? And maybe you're essentially, you already have all of these sort of like CI/CD type workflows built in, and you just want to do things in the CLI. You want to do things, at certain stages in your pipeline. The CLI's parity with all the features that we have essentially, makes that possible, so that you can be really flexible in the way that you apply Snyk to your workflow. So I think that's what makes the CLI super powerful, is the flexibility of it. You can do just about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with it, because it's a tool you can just download and install and use. You can use it either on the local machine, in your pipeline. If there is no custom integration with maybe a homebrew kind of CI/CD pipeline you use in your company, using the CLI is something that is pretty much your way to go because of the. Well, I will always compare it with a Swiss Army knife. It can do a ton of things. It's basically the whole Snyk platform in a binary. So yeah, let's look into that. Shall I share my screen, Kyle, or do you want to do it?
I could definitely pull one up. I got a couple examples here ready to go.
Yeah,
so.
let's do this. Let's start with the basics, as in, for people who don't know the CLI, what is the first thing you do? I don't have the CLI yet on my machine. What should I do?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Sorry, one sec. Let me get my terminal here. So if you don't have the Snyk CLI, actually, you know, I'll share. It seems like I don't have permission to share anything here.
That's always the problem with StreamYard.
Yeah.
Like, make sure that we have permissions. So, like, make sure that you have the permissions in the beginning. First thing you have to do is basically make sure that you have a Snyk account. So go to snyk.io and sign up for an account. It can be a free account, doesn't matter. If you have that account, then we can go into the actual tooling, but we need that account, basically. So I'm not sure if Kyle already has his permissions up.
I need to actually leave and come back because Chrome is open. So super great.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Leave us.
I want to post something first. I'm going to post the documentation actually to getting the CLI installed, up and ready to go. So that should help you get started if you haven't actually used Snyk before. And I think it's a really, really good resource. Our documentation is extremely thorough. And I'm about to drop so I can share my screen.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, I'll be right back, folks.
So while Kyle is dropping off, hopefully, I'm just taking him off screen now because that's annoying. But you see the CLI docs over here, and let me just copy paste them if I can. I'm not sure how this works. Well, I can go and share my browser like this. Yes, and we have a browser over here. And then I can put it in my screen like that. So say we go to, if you go to snyk.io, and you haven't yet signed up, there's a big sign up button over here. So if you go there, and of course I'm already signed up, so it will automatically log me in. But if you go to the sign up button and follow that flow, you can sign up with either your Gmail account or your GitHub account or whatever you feel comfortable with to get this going. And that is actually the first thing you need to do. After that, you pretty much don't need to touch the UI again, because then we can do everything from the terminal, and that is probably something that Kyle is now gonna show us because he's back.
Yes, I am back. So I will show y'all what this looks like here. So we're in a folder here with some projects. And as you can see, we've got several. Whoops, let's just resize this. We have several projects here. And we want to see some Snyk code examples. So we can actually just point to any like file path, right? So let's point to this directory here. And it's
Kyle,
actually
let's go all the way back for folks that didn't have the CLI installed at all. So just pretend that you don't have the CLI installed. So how do I install the CLI?
Yeah,
do I have to download a binary? Can I just
let me actually bring over some instructions on that. So move that into this window for us. Essentially, if we're going to install the Snyk CLI, there are a couple different ways to do that. You could use npm, you could use yarn, and you could even just run it as a Docker file. So if as a Docker container. So you could download a Docker file essentially, and then run that container, and then feed it in, any sort of input that you want, and then it will scan that input. So you can install a standalone executable here, as you can see. You would add the execute permission on it. zoom in a little here. But we actually have all the current download links hosted as well, as you can see here. So Alpine Linux, Snyk Linux, Mac OS, ARM64, WinExe. So all those links are here, and you can easily access those. So you can also use these direct links as well. We have some information about running this on the M1 Darwin chip, and essentially, if you're installing this way, you got to keep it manually up to date. So if you're building and breaking a container after maybe every let's say like week or so, right? Maybe you're running it for a week and then you burn down the container, then you bring it back up. You could essentially install a new version of the Snyk CLI every week, bundled with all the new findings. You could install it with Homebrew, and that's also an option for Linux, it appears. And Scoop, which is like a Windows package manager, so you can actually add it using Scoop. So Docker image, as we were talking about earlier, you could just run the Snyk CLI in a Docker image, really. You don't need to install an executable. And then there are tons of ways to integrate into your IDE or into your pipelines. So just getting the Snyk CLI installed, as you can see, there are lots of ways to do that. I'd recommend, if you're just trying to get started and just scan something right now, to use one of these. But if you want to use Snyk all the time, which I think you should, because even before I was working here, I found lots of ways to use Snyk in my work as a security engineer, as a bug bounty hunter, as a CTF player, etc. So yeah, I would say just install it. It's really easy to install. There are lots of ways to install it, and you could really just install it with npm install Snyk G, install it globally, and have it work in all contexts. So I think that's pretty neat. And I think this is the way that I would recommend most developers actually install Snyk. I think this is a great way. You get automatic updates with your npm packages. And it's very easy. If you're already a JavaScript developer, if you already use any npm reliant projects, then you already have most of this. So you can basically just run npm install Snyk G, and then you have Snyk in your terminal. After
always a question I want to ask. Like, does it make any difference? Because it now said npm. Let me put your screen back on. Npm install Snyk -G. I was always like, the G needs to be 4 as a flag, but probably doesn't matter, right?
Well, if you're going to use it from like different user contexts, I think it would matter. Because yeah, so like if you have a service running or something like that, it would matter, because then I don't think it's actually going to have access to it. I think it would be like in user bin or something like that in a Linux context. So it would be in user bin instead of like the whatever folder you're using on your operating system to host shared binaries, right? SBIN. So yeah, it's kind of you could probably see it that way. I'm not a node developer. I could be slightly off here, but I think that's the sort of like TLDR of it.
I know Sonia is quite well known with JavaScript and Node.js, so maybe she knows.
Yeah, it's better to have the flag, the global flag, just to have it accessible for all the projects that you have on your machine. So okay. Yeah, because otherwise you will have to install it for every project. So TLDR, gotcha. Just install it globally.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense. I learned something today, so that's the first. Okay, so I have Snyk installed and I have an account, but probably we need to authenticate before we can actually use.
Yeah. So, honestly, I think another really powerful thing about Snyk CLI, just like reflecting on the question you asked at the beginning, Brian, I think something that's really powerful is you can actually like add repositories to the UI from the CLI, right? So after you're authenticated and everything, you can actually run Snyk monitor, and that's going to actually add things in your UI, right? So basically, after you authenticate, basically you just go into your terminal, you type in Snyk auth, and then you use your API token, which I'm not going to show you today, for obvious reasons.
You don't have to use your token. I mean, let me. Well,
you can click the thing, and yeah, you can do like an automatic auth, right? But can you do that after you've already done it once? Because I could just
okay. Let me show you. So I have my terminal over here, and one thing I can do normally, even if I already have Snyk installed, I can do npm install, and normally I do my -G here, but I just learned that I should do it here.
Oh, you can put it anywhere. You can put that flag anywhere.
Anyway. let's do it here. So it said change one package out of the two packages, whatever. So it means that the last version and new versions will come out every single day. Will get installed, so I have all the new features available. And the only thing I have to do now is do Snyk auth, and hopefully it will. Oh yeah, of course it will come back in the other screen. So you will see over here it says authenticate your CLI. Because I'm already logged in, I can say authenticate, and then we're done. Because I just logged into my Snyk account. If not, you can log in right away. But this is all you need to do, and then you'll see if I remove this one that says like authentication failed. Oh, please check your API token. Yeah, again, probably because I work with different organizations, and this is a demo organization. So yes, and the token I use you see here, I'm gonna burn that right away.
Already got it, Brian. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's cool. I burn it, so you're not it's not useful anymore. But this is pretty much how you do it, and then you can do everything within the Snyk CLI. So I will move Kyle's screen up again.
Thank you. So yeah, as you can see, we can do a lot of things in the CLI. We can ignore, which actually modifies the .snyk policy file and ignores any issues that we put in there. We can also check out the policy if we already have one defined. So if we're already looking at a project that we have already in the Snyk UI, and we have some policy assigned to it, and maybe we have some sort of tag on it. Right, maybe it belongs to a certain org, whatever it is, we can apply policies to it and essentially view the policies from here. So that provides some, context if you're maybe a security engineer or somebody looking at another team stuff, or you're, essentially trying to figure out why this thing's failing. You could examine the policy, right? If you're trying to push through your CI/CD and your security guys have put up pretty decent guardrails to help protect you from releasing vulnerabilities and prod, then, if your push is failing due to Snyk policy, you could observe the policy here, but you're going to also get that feedback wherever, you have Snyk integrated in your pipeline, whether that's in, GitHub Actions, or whether that's in your Jenkins CI, or however you're getting your feedback. Maybe you're getting your feedback in Slack for your builds, or, you're getting it, I forget the name of the service, but yeah, you're getting it through, maybe a third-party service, a hosted, service where it's a CI/CD management platform. So however you're getting that, you can essentially view the policy, whether you just want to view it in your CLI, or if you want to view it in the UI, you can view the policy either of those ways. So Snyk Monitor, like I was talking about, it's really cool because if you're creating a new project and you're creating a ton of Git pushes, and maybe you don't want to leave your CLI, your IDE, you can run Snyk Monitor in your terminal. And essentially Snyk Monitor can add the repository that you're working on to your authenticated Snyk account, and it will monitor for vulnerabilities every 24 hours, license infractions, right? Whatever sort of policy you have set up. So I think that's really, really cool. But yeah, you can essentially do anything with the Snyk CLI that you can do with the UI for the most part. Like obviously you can't create users, and you can't do all the management stuff that we see in the back end as people, who are running the actual platform. So you can actually, create users and create new user groups and stuff like that. But as far as performing tests, analyzing results, and getting actionable information, or adding your code to Snyk, getting your code scanned, finding vulnerabilities, you can do all of that through the CLI. There's no need to ever leave your CLI. So I really appreciate that, because I like working with my CLI more than web UI, or I don't want to be in Chrome looking at different web pages to try to figure out what's going on in my code. So I do appreciate, bring all the insight to the terminal, bring it all to the IDE. I know we're not going to touch on the IDE today, but I think the IDE features are like super cool and really powerful. So yeah, definitely, really excited about this stuff. And our team has actually been working really hard to like help get our CLI output into different formats too. So I think that's some really interesting stuff. They're getting into standardized formats, formats pushed by pretty large organizations. So whether you're trying to bring that into like an SBOM management platform, or you're trying to, aggregate, categorize, and analyze, the results of your scans, and, find any sort of like, correlation in this stuff. You can basically get the stuff in any format that you want. So it doesn't just need to be, and I'll show the standard Snyk output. Let's see, we'll mess with NPM 7 for now. So if we're going to do Snyk code test, NPM7 goof, and you should be able to do this now that you've authenticated and you've installed the Snyk CLI. So essentially, this is going to run a scan on all the code in that directory. And as you can see, we got some command injections, NoSQL injections, unsanitized input, hard-coded secrets, information exposure, cross-site request forgeries, and resources without limits. So, somebody can run up your resources, give you a really big AWS bill at the end of the month. And clear text transmission of sensitive information. So essentially, just some stuff that's also medium severity, best practice stuff, and essentially clear text transmission of sensitive information is never a good thing. Your credit card's encrypted when it's traveling through the internet, and so are most parts of your user data. Hashes of your passwords should only be sent to servers and things like that. So, and then compared with the hash, etc. over there. We won't get into cryptography that deep, but essentially this is pretty bad to see. So it's cool that we can find all this stuff and essentially, perform these heuristics on different types of, database management systems in different languages and different application frameworks in different ecosystems. So I think Snyk Code is really awesome. It's just a really neat product. And then if you want to get your format in JSON, you can just do this actually.
Let's get back to the first one first, because you're doing Snyk Code test and then you specify the directory, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So you can.
So if I'm already in that directory, would Snyk Code test, for instance, would that be enough?
Yeah. So if we were to sit in this directory here and we wanted to run a Snyk Code test, we can just do this. So we don't need to provide a directory every time. It will actually, imply the dot, which is this directory or here. So it's like we're running Snyk Code test dot, and dot implies current directory in most Linux contexts.
That makes a lot of sense. Can we just pick one of these things and look at the actual code, because that is interesting, because it says something with a path and a line number. And well, this is, of course, normally in your IDE, you might click on something like this, but this will already gives me at least a pointer that I need to go to a certain line. So
yeah, I think that is.
Oh, nice! You're a genuine VI user or Vim user. Oh man.
Yeah, I would keep on typing it in NeoVim or NVim because I keep forgetting that I'm not on my Linux laptop. But I think we could do this. So numbers here. And I think we were going to look at, oh, whoops, I forgot the line number. What was it? 144 and 116.
Yeah.
So as we can see here, find by ID, required parameter ID. So it's saying essentially, this input could be manipulated here, the request parameters, right? So if we're taking user input, untrusted user input, and we're acting on it, right, this ID could be something else. Essentially, it could be, out of the confines of what we want it to be, essentially. And then, as you can see here, we also have another request, right? So this is exports import. So it seems like this is a sort of export function. So if we're taking the request and we're, essentially trusting this input, right, then there are all sorts of things that we can do. Like we saw what's possible, with log4 shell with just, a log processing library, right? A log processing categorization, filtration library. So if we're trusting, requests and we aren't sanitizing the input of said requests, right? As was the, sort of implication here, right? Then you can tell that, it's essentially what would you call it? It's like a pivoting point for like a hacker, right? So like if you can do a NoSQL injection and you can, essentially process things that are untrusted, then, the sky's the limit, right? The confines of your creativity are the only thing holding you back at that point. So I think, this is really good to see, right? It's good to find this stuff, sniff it out, and essentially, sanitize all untrusted user inputs. We could take a look at another one if we want.
Yeah, let's do one more.
Yeah, let's see. What do we want to look at here? Any ideas, folks?
Can have a look at credentials. Credentials are always interesting.
Yeah, 12. So Typeform DB has some on 12 and 11. So as we see here, username root, password root. So pretty silly example here, but this is definitely possible. It's not like this hasn't happened before. We saw hacks happen to Discover and even Equifax, right, with like default credentials on cloud service provider services. So doing something like this is not actually like in a production environment. As somebody who's worked as an AppSec engineer, I've seen people use the same secrets in like 81 different places, the same seed string in like 81 different places across clients, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a certain way to tell Snyk Code not to scan certain files?
Yeah, that's what I wanna get back to that in a second. Thanks, Eric. I will get, but first I want to have a question for Sonia. Maybe I mean, you're also a security advocate, so you probably know much more about security than I do. But they call this SAST scanning. What does that mean? I mean, I'm your average Joe developer, and what does it do?
Oh, so SAST stands for Static Application Security Testing, and basically is a tool that will scan your code to let you know if there's any vulnerability within your code base.
So basically, that is pretty much this static analysis.
Yes, this is static analysis. This is different from the DAS, which is a dynamic analysis on runtime. So this is more like reading your code and letting you know if there's any vulnerability.
So again, I'm just your average Java developer. What is the difference between like static? I get that, but dynamic analysis, like what is that? Can you explain that in just a brief sentence?
Sure. So dynamic, this will actually test your application on the runtime. So it will probe your application with, for example, fuzzing testing. So it'll try different query parameters and testing on your application when it's actually hosted and on production, let's say. Yeah, this is where the DAST tool would cover that part.
Okay. So pretty much, let's say for everybody, this is a SAST tool, static analysis, and DAST, what we explain later. It can be that somebody just jumps in. That's not what this is. So like, I'm always confused, like SAST, DAST, there are so many of these acronyms in InfoSec or in the security space that I always forget what is what. So
we love our acronyms. We have a lot of acronyms in security.
and naming is hard. That is also a thing.
But the most confusing part. Oh, I was going to say, I think the most confusing part about these acronyms is, SAST, which is static application security testing. Some people call that static code analysis, but SCA is, SCA, which is software composition analysis. So whenever somebody calls SAST like static code analysis, I'm like kind of like I wish we didn't, but we do, sort of deal. But yeah, static application security testing is very long, and nobody wants to say that out loud. So,
But I think at least the acronym, if you write it out in full, it actually says what it does. It's something security and something static analysis. So definitely, that's already a good thing.
I think it's a good acronym.
Let's go to Eric's question, because I think that is Mr. E. Smalling. I have never heard of that person. But is there a way to tell Snyk Code not to scan a certain file or path listed in like a unit test was like I said, like a unit test? But it's pretty much like, can we exclude certain paths or certain files, which is a very, very good comment.
Let's try it.
Well, let's do it.
So, can you remove that message? Thank you. So we will do a Snyk ignore, and we'll read just the docs for it. So it says an ID is required for Snyk ignore. So let's look at this. Do we get more info here? Yeah, we do. So we can actually ignore things from like a ton of different ways, it looks like. Whoa. So if we take a look at Snyk ignore help, we can do an ID, and that's just an issue ID. We can have it expire after a certain period of time, which is actually something that I had to do at one of my old places. We were using Snyk, and we had so many things that we knew we weren't going to get to until next quarter, and we just put a 90-day sort of expiry, and then we went back and looked at it later. You can add a reason as well. Why are we ignoring this? Is this determined not to be a reachable vulnerability through further analysis, right? Maybe you have a SCA finding and you're like, okay, we're not utilizing this vulnerable functionality. Let's ignore all of these for reason X, Y, Z. maybe you've decided that you've thrown a WAF in front of it, and throwing a WAF in front of it is good enough, so this vulnerability is negated by some other security control. Whatever it may be, whatever your perspective or requirement may be, you can submit a reason, because as we all know, in security, exception management is extremely important. Otherwise, you don't know what you're accepting and why you're essentially neglecting X instead of Y. So having an exception management process, you can have that detailed somewhere, whether you have that detailed in Notion or some other, Confluence, whatever it may be. And then you can essentially set an expiry and a reason. Reason could be whatever sort of exception process you have. This is a P1 exception. This is a P2 exception. This is a P3 exception. This is going to expire in 30 days. This will expire in 60 days or 90 days. So you can be really flexible with that. And then, policy path. So it's actually a path to policy file. Like we're sort of talking about policies. So you can actually include that policy and ignore based off of a policy. And then there are tons of options here. So as you
I think we'll have to look at you said usage and then the ID, but the ID is as far as I know, is only a thing for the SCA, so the software composition analysis. So if you have a certain dependency, if you see that if you can go up in your screen, you see two examples, and the one is with file path, and I think that is the one specifically for Snyk Code, so we can actually make sure that a certain path or a certain file will be ignored from Snyk code scanning. And I will drop a comment in the chat where you can see that in the docs as well, where you can exclude directories or files, because I don't think the vulnerabilities named by Snyk Code have an ID, because it works differently than the ID is in the software composite analysis. So it's still very, very much useful to do an expiry and a reason, but you have to include the file path in that case, as far as I know.
Gotcha. So are you ignoring a whole file in that case, or is there a way to get granular with it?
Well, it basically says something like this: Snyk. Let me just share my screen over here. And if I zoom in, it says here, Snyk ignore -- file - path, and then directory or file. So it is possible to either pinpoint a specific directory or a .file, and that will create, as we can see over here, that ignore command will create a .snyk file where everything is stored in, and you can also manually remove that. But over here we see something like how we can ignore files in. I can better do this way, so it's actually way more visible. So yeah, because if we do the software composite analysis, we have an ID for a specific vulnerability in a specific package that we want to that we can exclude, and here we just need to exclude either a directory or a specific file from things, because or how else can you do this? Because what's now on line 39 can tomorrow be on line 40, and if you exclude by line, that would be a mess, because then you still have that thing. So I hope that answers Eric's question.
Yeah, he actually said that he tried it and it worked swimmingly, so that's awesome. But
that is great.
There's some good examples here actually in our documentation.
Yep.
So
yeah, in that documentation, I shared the link in in both the YouTube and the Twitch, and I will pop it up here again, so you can actually visit it.
And if you actually run Snyk ignore help and you go down to the bottom, there's some like really in-depth examples down there, like some very practical. You can do path matching, right? Stuff like that. So as you can see here, this is actually in the curl dependency source code, right? So there's tools, messages, and that's a C file. So they put an expiry for, it looks like about 10 years from now. And the reason is because they patched the file. So this is a patched file. It doesn't have, the vulnerability that they're talking about. And that's their reason there. So they're going to come back to it in 10 years. But
about expiry, and I want to hear both your opinions on that. Again, expiry date in 10 years, that almost seems like, okay, we should never look at this again. But what would you think is a good time to do that? Is that 30 days? Is that 1 week? Is that 1 year? What is your opinion on that?
Sonia, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think it depends on the SLA that you set within your company and the context within it. So if you have a critical or a high, obviously the SLA would be shorter. So it might be the same day or a couple of days. Whereas if you have info low vulnerability, you could potentially have 90 days on it. But I guess, as I said, it depends on the SLA that you set and your security policy around that within your company.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sonia there. I think it really matters, like analyzing these things based on impact, right? Rather, there are processes, but yeah, you got to, apply those processes based on the impact of like certain infractions, right? So if what we're doing is like, maybe we have to get this feature out because of reason X, Y, Z, and it's super important, and if we don't, the everything's going to be on fire and the world's going to end, right? So if that's the case, then yeah, maybe there's some temporary protection, right? And then you would set, you would essentially apply a policy saying, okay, we have this temporary fix in place, right? Whether you're putting a bandage on a bullet wound, in security terms, I just call that a WAF. But if you're going to throw a WAF in front of it and say, okay, this is it, we've done our job for now, we're going to come back and visit it next sprint, right? That is definitely reasonable for like super high priority, high complexity things. But yeah, then you have something in prod that you have to support that might potentially be vulnerable. So
what is a WAF?
What is
Again,
a WAF?
I'm a programmer. I have no clue what these things
Acronyms.
are. What is a WAF?
Acronyms.
Again, acronyms. Tell me, what is a WAF?
Web application firewall. So it's just a software firewall, Brian. It's like deep packet inspection.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It essentially
let's not go into that. I mean,
yeah.
this is already.
It just looks at traffic and decides whether to permit or not permit it based on whether it's regular or not. So like you set a baseline for your traffic. You're like, this is what regular traffic looks like, computer. And then computer's like, okay, awesome. I won't allow anything else. And then you're like, thank you, computer, you're the best. And then you go on with your life and you're very happy because you have some temporary mitigating measure in place. And it's, essentially a one size fits all, right? But not really. But like, people just use it. People can get around WAFs. There are a lot of people that are getting around WAFs, and it's actually a sport for some folks. So yeah.
So pretty much you say it depends on what other measures we have in place, how long we can ignore such a vulnerability.
Exactly. And like Sonia said, that's entirely based on like your policy, your security maturity, right? Your allocation of resources. Do you have a ton of resources in this WAF? Are you paying a ton of money for this WAF? And then like essentially, yeah, you would come up with your policy as far as like ignores and like exceptions go, in conjunction with like your infosec team, engineering leadership, and you would want to make those expectations like very clearly known and communicated throughout the entirety of the organization, because those are your customers at the end of the day, the developers, engineering, right? And IT and security and AppSec are sort of the folks who are supposed to to help enable, right, in engineering while still maintaining that security. So yeah, sometimes you got to make an exception, and sometimes it's for a week, sometimes it's for months. And Sonia, please.
No, because we're talking about security, severity. Sorry, severity. Would it be a good opportunity to show the severity threshold flag so we can actually filter by severity? Because we're talking about prioritization and those kind of things. So it might be interesting to have like that severity threshold equals high.
Do you have that handy, Sonia? Would you like to share that?
I think I don't have the prompts to share. Sorry.
Well, like I can give it a try. But let's just figure that out. So this was the docs, but I still have my application here. So say I do a Snyk code, and
so it would be Snyk code dash. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's go with the help one.
I'm always a person that like, if I don't know, let's see what's in the help. It's severity threshold. So let's go for only the high.
High. Yeah, this will help filter to focus on the and fix the high vulnerabilities. So basically, if you select high, it will give you high and critical. So it'll give you also the upper level of the vulnerability.
So Snyk code test because this is a Java application and I'm already in that project. So I can do severity threshold high. So that takes the highs and the critical vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's see if I don't want to get bothered by any low or medium severity problems. That well, for instance, it might be a thing for your, if you do this in your CI system, like, okay, on my local machine it's okay, but I don't want to get bothered with low severity issues to block my thing. So
this could
high,
be also
I don't
a
have
mechanism.
I don't have any
Sorry.
criticals. That's but you said go ahead.
Showing
Sorry.
you, yeah.
No, this could be a good mechanism within your CI/CD pipeline where you have like security gates. I don't like the word gate, but I like quality quality gates, or but yeah, basically this would fail the build, but depending on the maturity of the team, obviously. But this, if you have criticals or high, the build would fail within your pipeline, or you have to fix it on your GitHub repo, or this will depend on the workflow that you have, but this might be a good workflow that you could integrate within.
I think that is spot on. Like when we're talking about the CLI, we really are building it with developers and flexibility in mind. And like the CLI is built with, CI/CD like thought patterns, right? Like, so essentially, yeah, we want to get you the exact sort of, feedback that you need for whatever that use case is. So yeah, whether Brian only wants to focus on highs and criticals and he wants to give everything else to his intern, or if he's essentially doling out work based on severity, right? Like these folks know how to deal with this type of issue, or if he's doling out work based on the type of finding, right? So you can very easily use something like JQ, get the JSON output, give that to people, put it in some sort of reporting mechanism, see how the teams are doing, like have a leaderboard. So that's really easy to do here to like sort of gamify, security remediation and stuff like that is super, super effective. Like that's the most I've been able to solve as a security engineer was when I was like a one-person team with like 40 security champions who were all competing against each other on all the agile teams. So yeah, I think really just enabling developers, right? Like the CLI is a great way to do that. The IDE is a great way to do that. So you gotta meet developers where they're at. So we say. But like somebody said, I don't like using the term guardrails either, right? So I think I'm coming up with something new. We're going to call them like bowling bumpers, right? Because you never want to be a gutter ball, right? You want to make sure your developers aren't bowling only gutter balls. So yeah, bowling bumpers, right? We're giving them some lane assist. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's a good way to look at it instead of gates, right? Like keeping developers out, right? We're trying to include them, but if they need the bumpers, they need the bumpers. It's not our fault.
What I do like here, like I don't have any criticals, so I just did a with the threshold medium, as you can see in the top over here. But what I love is that because you see the output from top to bottom, you see the most severe ones first, and then you scroll up in your terminal, and you see the less severe ones instead of the other way around. I think that's a pretty like the first thing that catches my eye is the high severity vulnerability, or the couple of high severity vulnerabilities I have over here, instead of the mediums or the lows or whatever the lowest is that I have in my thing. So if there were any criticals, I would see them like right away in my face over here. So I see how I need to prioritize these things. And to get back on your remark, Kyle, if you're running the CLI in such a way, and this is specifically for code, but that also works for any of the other things like containers and SCA, so basically the dependency analysis. And I always forget which code it is. Like you have the exit code that normally a terminal command has. It can be 0 or 1 or whatever it is. But one of them is good and one of them is bad. And based on that, like if there are no vulnerabilities with the severity I have configured it with, then it will just pass. For instance, if you do this in a container or in a GitHub action, I just wrote a blog post around that. If it passes and there are no because there are no vulnerability, it passes with a exit code that is good. And if it has a vulnerability within the configuration that you have, it fails. So basically, your pipeline fails. and that is up to you if you actually want that or not. So you can level that out if you want to. But that's it. That's how it works by default. And with setting the severity in such a way that you can say something like I did over here, like medium, you can already filter out whatever you want to show. So yeah, that. One of the things I want to like you were about to go into the and I will bring your screen up again, Kyle. You were about to go into the other outputs, like the JSON output, and I think there's another output like serif. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, so we can actually have a JSON output here where you can see all sorts of things such as coverage properties, language support, what it's actually detecting. And I think that's really awesome. You can also see a priority score, which isn't just a CVSS score. It's actually a plethora of other heuristics packaged into that. So whether there's a mature exploit, is this trending on Twitter? Are we seeing a lot of information from our partners, like Google, AWS, and Microsoft Azure? Like, are we seeing lots of traffic from them? Are they putting out some sort of report? Are they informing us, that there's something going on? So we take a look at all sorts of things in order to factor this in. As you can see, there's lots of information here, basically anything you're going to need to know, such as like rule IDs and, the level of an error this is, right? So I think this is really, really cool. It's essentially just another way for you to use this data. Some people want to, put Snyk in, the Snyk results in some sort of like, compartmentalized like log management system. And then they want to look at the trends over a period of time for different projects and things like that. So since you can actually act on any of these, like let's say you threw all this into Splunk. I have a couple of Splunk certs, so that's the thing I'm the most familiar with. But that is something that some people will do. They'll put it in Logstash, they'll put it in Splunk, and then essentially you'll be able to look down at the project level, at the file level, using your filtering, using your Splunk query language, and you'll essentially be able to gather information based on the JSON output. There's also the serif output, and this is actually made by the Oasis org, and the Oasis org is actually a standard for open standard. It's an organization for open standards. So I think that was actually wrong. I forgot how you spell that, so I'm just going to go here and serif. That's it. So we can just run the Snyk code test. And this is a standard for like static analysis tools, I'm pretty sure. And essentially, it's just an open standard that people are using, and it looks very much like the JSON output. So as you can see, got some options here. I know a lot of people also use JQ, and then you can get to the SPDX format. So I'll show that too. There, I think that's a pretty cool example. Let me just pull that up. There's actually a blog for it too, Brian, if you don't mind pulling that up. If you look up Snyk SPDX, it'll come up.
Let me briefly Snyk X.
And this is going out a little outside of, I don't have JQ installed on this box, of course. All right, let's see. Yeah, so I would probably need to install JQ.
Do you mean this blog post by Gareth?
Yes, that's actually it. So if we go down a little, we can show the code block actually. So SPDX, as people know, is like a SBOM format. For the most part, SBOM, if you don't know, is software bill of materials. As you can see here, it's giving us all sort of information about, essentially what's contained in this. So there will be a list of vulnerabilities and dependencies, etc. SBOM is like a very new common format for this type of stuff. So let's see, will this work now? I think this should work.
I'm putting your screen back on.
Oh, awesome. So this did work, actually. We got an SBOM formatted output. And this is essentially, something that you can put in all sorts of platforms where you may be managing your software bill of materials, whatever that may be. There's some platforms from OWASP, there's some platforms from third-party vendors. But yeah, the OWASP platform is great. So as you can see here, it shows us, all sorts of relationship information, right? Who determined, who found this vulnerability, right? So
just to be clear, is this the because the code block we just showed said Snyk test, which is not Snyk code, which is
so this
much...
isn't actually Snyk code. This is actually just another format for other types of output. So if we wanted to run like a Snyk SCA test, right? So software composition analysis, analyze the dependencies. This isn't exactly we would use the JSON format just like we use for Snyk code. But we would use Snyk to SPDX, which is just a npm package that should essentially get us that formatted output. But that is the same sort of output as this. So you can really get creative here. You could do all sorts of things with
I think you have to switch around the commands. It's now Snyk test code, Snyk code test.
You're 100% right. Snyk code test. So. There are no dependency vulnerabilities there because we just aren't pointing at, a manifest with them. As you can see here, this is essentially the same sort of output, but what we're just doing afterwards is we were piping it into SPDX to Snyk, or Snyk to SPDX, and that is a very common format. So, I think a lot of people find that useful, and not necessarily Snyk code related, but tangentially related, right? So you can take that JSON format, as you can see, and you can act on that JSON format from Snyk code in a variety of ways, whatever way sort of makes sense for your workflow. So
what I think is pretty cool over here is because we have these outputs, specifically the JSON output, I can pretty much integrate this in whatever tooling I want if there is no custom stuff for it. But Sonia, we spoke about this earlier, like the serif output. I have never encountered that. What do you think would be a use case to use that? Because I know JSON. I worked with JSON, parsing, marshalling it in and out, but serif, I haven't not encountered that. So enlighten me. Maybe you know a bit more.
Yeah, so as Kyle said, so serif, another acronym, stands for Static Analysis Results Interchange Format, if I get that right. And yeah, acronyms. And yeah, as Kyle said, it's an industry standard format for the output of static analysis tools. So it's used by security tools, for example, vulnerability management tool. So if we take the example of the OWASP Defect Dojo, if you don't find a Snyk implementation, which there is a Snyk implementation, but it's not covering the Snyk code, it's covering the Snyk SCA. So if you want to cover the Snyk code, you can use the serif output that you can produce with through the CLI or through your pipeline, and you can actually aggregate all the results that you produce within the Defect Dojo, and then you can start triaging and manage your vulnerabilities within this tool.
So if I heard the acronym correct, it is a specific format for static analysis tools or static analysis security tools, or?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense for a security tool to actually support that. Then, I've never used it. I did use the JSON format to integrate this in other tools, and I know that some of our integrations with, for instance, IDEs or custom integrations for CI pipelines like Circle CI or Jenkins, or I'm not sure if these are the exact examples, but use the CLI JSON output under the hood to mold it in such a nice format that you can actually have some great reporting out of that. So I think that is a key thing you can do both on your local machine, but also in your pipeline or anywhere else where you can run this thing.
You can also upload your serif output on GitHub if you're using GitHub to centralize all the serif your serif security tools. So you can also import the file there.
Makes sense. Like it's a standard. So absolutely. All right. We've got 5 minutes left about on this stream. So let me see if there are any. There are currently no questions. So if you still have questions, please use these opportunities. And we have these things every month, though. If you have any questions about the specific topic, like Snyk code in this case, or Snyk code and the CLI, or specifically on the CLI, or anything that is remotely related to Snyk, feel free to put that in the chat, and we try to answer that, like we did with Eric's question around how to ignore certain files and certain paths. Let's look into the CLI once again. Let me put us up and like that.
Brian, just one Brian, sorry,
go ahead.
one thing. So you can actually use the severity threshold flag on the JSON, the format, or serif, if you only want to target the high. Yeah, so you can add the flag, and you will only have the level of severity that you're using.
Oh, that is cool. So you can make sure that your output is only contains whatever it needs, even though you want
Yes.
this in a specific output. That is absolutely great. What I love about the JSON output or the serif output as well is that it has so much more information than the actual output. If you look at it in the CLI summary,
so much metadata.
Yeah, there's basically all the metadata you need. Even though in some cases there are even, if I'm not mistaken, there are even examples how other repositories have fixed these kind of issues, if there are any fixes. Of course, this is an aggregated example now, what you see normally, but if you go look into the full example in JSON or serif, it will get you more and more information if you want that.
How do we do that? Is it like verbose or something? Is there a way to do like the lengthier output?
No, I think this the output, and the other output is either JSON or serif. But JSON gives you the full output for that specific vulnerability with the examples. But the output for the CLI like this is just like this to make it digestible.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think this is awesome. I think just even seeing the SBOM format, like I know that was a huge step forward for like a lot of our customers and just people who are like Snyk advocates, right? Like both in the formal Snyk advocate program and just like in the real world, right? People who like our software, people who like what we do, and people who like vibe with the mission, so to speak, right? So I think those people really, really liked seeing the SBOM output. They really like seeing the JSON output. So yeah, I think the more flexibility we give our customers, the more interesting ways they'll come up with to use Snyk. And customers send us scripts all the time. I think we just got some more a couple more scripts sent to us. That this customer is using to supplement their Snyk efforts, and we 100% like love seeing stuff like that. We love adding it to the product, and we love enabling y'all with more features. So if you have any ideas or anything that you want to see that we haven't been able to accomplish yet, definitely do feel free to give us some feedback, both in the Discord community, which I don't have a link handy to right now. But,
I will post the link to the Discord community in just a second. I would just want to summarize whatever we talked about today. So if you haven't installed the Snyk CLI for Snyk Code in this case, make sure you have an account. Easy, sign up. Make sure you have it. Free account is good enough. Then you install, preferably with npm install Snyk. And that will install or update. So do this every single time or on a regular basis that you have the newest version. And then if you are already in your path, you can do a Snyk Code test. If you're not, you can provide the directory over here, whatever you want. And if I do a Snyk Code test, it will do everything. It will show what kind of vulnerabilities I have, what the severity is from high to medium. I only have medium and high in this application. Path reversals, SQL injections, gives you the line output. If you want more output, you can go into the JSON output, parse that, and see and display it in any format you want, or the serif format, which I just learned today. It's a specific format for static analysis tools. So that pretty much wraps up whatever we had lined up today. And I want from both of you, any last comments you want to add, or shout outs, or things you didn't like, or whatever. I just give you both the opportunity just to say something.
I hope you learned a little bit more about security acronyms today.
I did learn a lot about security acronyms, because I found that a very hard thing. Yeah.
Yep. Soon, Brian will be skying to SBOMing to whatever. He's going to be all over the place with the security acronyms and buzzwords. But
I'm waiting for the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. Brian, we should do like a buzzword bingo. Yeah.
a security buzzword being. Oh, let me. We have we are a bit over time, but let me put something up because I think security acro.
My shout out would be though, shout out to the vulnerability project and the team working on that. I think that is a super cool feature that sets us apart because we actually have our SAST and our SCA working together. Meaning, if we have a SCA finding in Java, and we have a matchable Snyk code like pattern to like determine whether you're actually utilizing the vulnerable functionality instead of package, we will mark it as a higher priority for you, and because we're identifying it as a potentially reachable vuln, a vuln that could be exploited in your code. So I think that is super cool. It's super unique, and it's something that like I haven't seen anyone else do well. So shout out to the vulnerability team. I think we should do users office hours on that.
Oh, absolutely. And we will plan that in for either the next one or the one after that. I want to end up with this because it's already a bit old, but December 1st, but there is a cheat sheet for the top 10 application security acronyms, which is SAS, DAST, SCA, like a lot of these things that I as a developer will like, what the heck is this? But I think we can make a new one out of this. Like now, Serif is not on this, so I didn't know. However,
is there SBOM on there? No SBOM either, huh?
No, we need to update it then. Yeah,
we probably need to. We'll probably need to update it. But if you want to learn more on security on acronyms, we have a cheat sheet that was written by Alyssa Miller some time ago. But it's still a great read. Just wanted to finish with that. But for now, I'm on away from my point. Thank you. I'm very happy that you all joined. I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, I will see you at the next one. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.